So, folks, we gotta talk about Iran. Because, well, let's take a look at this quote from Donald Trump from earlier today.
Right now, because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody. But we have, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, who's been very good. We have the whole chain of command, and they've been, look, the relationship's been great. We've taken out.
Right now, because you said all the people.
Now, two things here. Number one, oh my god, you can see the color of his scalp under his hair here, like right here, and compare that to the color of his face. The amount of makeup that they are trying to employ here has overtaken him. He's more makeup now than man. Number two, hey Chad, is it a good thing if the president orders a unilaterally entered war of aggression and everyone is dead that they wanted to negotiate with? Is that good? It's not good. There's no one to negotiate at this point with at this point. And everyone that could have been negotiated with after the Ayatollah being dead is all more hardline militaristic than the Ayatollah was. So, like, any of the new leadership coming into power in Iran is absolutely not going to negotiate with the United States. Okay? And that's a big problem because we're setting ourselves up for a protracted conflict. And that's going to be a problem in several different ways here that I'm going to get into in a bit. But during some of my initial coverage, one of the issues we talked about was that Donald Trump kept saying, Iran, it's time to rise up and take your republic. It's time to take your government. It's yours for the taking if you want it. And like, I explained that this was because he wants effectively the Iranian people to serve as the boots on the ground, to serve as, the vanguard of the new Iranian order. And the issue is he wants them to do that so that they are effectively, I don't know how to put this delicately, so I'm just going to put it bluntly, so that they're, churned up in the wood chipper of war. Yeah, he wants them to do the grunt work. He wants Iranians to be shot and killed in the name of Iranian freedom so that he can kind of like pat himself on the back and take all the credit and then stroll away, right? The issue with that is Iran has a dense and, particularly hardy bureaucracy. So the Iranian people aren't going to rise up. At least it does not appear that that is at all going to be the case. And not only that, but you have messaging now from Pete Hegseth, from Donald Trump himself, talking about how, like, well, maybe we'll put American boots on the ground. And they're saying that because they want to ensure a regime change. And the only way to ensure that is with boots on the ground. So, all of that being said, they are aware that it is going to be incredibly, incredibly unpopular for American soldiers to go boots on the ground in Iran. So they're desperately searching for people who could serve as effectively a vanguard to be ground up in the wood chipper of war. And they think they've found one. The CIA is working to arm Kurdish forces to spark uprising in Iran, sources say. So, what is effectively happening here is that the United States is now turning back to the Kurds to give the Kurds weaponry to go and try and overthrow Iran. And I just have to really state here, there is no possible way this ends well for anyone involved. because the United States was working with the Kurds years ago, and Donald Trump specifically screwed them all over and left them to die. The betrayal of the Kurds has already happened, and we're setting up another situation for that to play out again. And I don't think the Kurds are gonna fall for it. And this is going to spiral out of control so bad. I thought he started this war so he can declare a national state of emergency and pause all elections. One, he can't pause all elections, even if a national state of emergency is declared. And number two, having a war happening in Iran would not facilitate any kind of state of emergency here domestically. But all this being said, right? Okay, so we're gonna go arm the Kurds. There's another huge problem with any kind of prolonged conflict, and it's getting worse and worse every day. I'm going to play a clip from yesterday of JD Vance, okay? Let's just listen to what JD Vance has to say.
What is different about President Trump, and it's frankly different about both Republicans and Democrats of the past, is that he's not going to let his country go to war unless there's a clearly defined objective. He's defined that objective as Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and has to commit long term to never trying to rebuild their nuclear capability. It's pretty clear. It's pretty simple. And I think that means that we're not going to get into the problems that we've had with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Do you and the president...
Just also, as an FYI, they can't have a nuclear program, which is why we killed anyone we could have negotiated with. So now we're just stuck in a long period of continuing to bomb them and, kill people until someone emerges as the leader of Iran in order to negotiate on the behalf of the Iranians. No, this doesn't make any sense at all. If you're looking to enter negotiations, you don't just kill the people you're negotiating with. That cannot be how that works. Also, JD Vance specifically says this isn't going to be a forever war like Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, Donald Trump had something to say a few hours later. Let's take a look. The United States munition stockpiles have, at the medium and upper medium grade, never been higher or better. As was stated to me today, we have a virtually unlimited supply of these weapons. Wars can be fought forever and very successfully. Using just these supplies, which are better than other countries' finest arms. At the highest end, we have a good supply, but are not where we want to be. Much additional high-grade weaponry is stored for us in outlying countries. Sleepy Joe Biden spent all his time and our country's money giving everything to P.T. Barnum, Zelensky of Ukraine. Hundreds of billions of dollars worth, and while he gave so much of the super high-end away free, he didn't bother to replace it. Fortunately, I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so. The United States is stocked and ready to win big. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, this is a pretty weird thing to just post out of the blue, but what was specifically warned to him by virtually everyone in a military in the military command of the United States is that the United States does not have the necessary arms and ammunition to fight a protracted conflict with Iran. We don't have it. And the fact that he is posting this publicly yesterday, March 2nd, indicates that, damn, we really might be in big trouble here. Okay? And I say this for a couple reasons. One, because he would not be saying that if it wasn't dire. And two, because the timeline he's giving of we're going to be there for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, seems to be roughly aligned with the amount of ammunition we have stockpiled. I.e., he is keen to make it seem like this isn't a problem, but he is aligning his war strategy around, we have to win this in 4 weeks. Okay? Let's take a look here. Inside the Pentagon and among some members of the Trump administration, there was deepening concern Sunday that the Iran conflict could spiral out of control, said people familiar with the situation. The mood here is intense and paranoid, one person said. There is anxiety among senior leaders that the fighting will extend for weeks, further stressing limited U.S. air defense stockpiles, people familiar with this situation said. There is concern about this lasting more than a few days, said another person. I don't think people have fully absorbed yet, what that has done with stockpiles, they added, noting that it often takes 2 or 3 air defense interceptors to ensure that an incoming missile is stopped. So we have, again, a pretty limited window during which our military bases and ships will have anti-air capabilities to stop these missiles. American soldiers have already started dying. Okay, I believe the death toll is now up to 6 American soldiers. When that death toll starts spiking because our ships no longer have anti-missile capabilities and our bases no longer have anti-missile capabilities, we are going to see a lot of damage being done. Because I guarantee you, based on what Iran has been fielding so far, they've been throwing out disposable one-way drones that are made to just, explode on impact. They have made a very cheap military that is extensive. And a lot of that stuff hasn't even really been sent out there yet. Okay? People are mad at this attack right now. People are mad that Donald Trump has led us into a pointless war in the Middle East, that he's killing children in our name. And when American soldiers start dropping like flies, and American ships start sinking, and American bases start burning, people are gonna be asking some questions about that. All over fucking nothing. So there is a colossal problem coming, and the fact that Donald Trump stepped in to talk about munition, the amount of munitions we have in stock, I think that's a really bad sign. Because what is really, really apparent here is that there is no plan. Here's Marco Rubio being asked about the plan to evacuate Americans now that the conflict is continuing to boil over across the entirety of the Middle East. What's the plan for the United States to evacuate American citizens?
Was there a plan in place to evacuate Americans before the attack took place?
Well, that's the plan we're trying to carry out. The problem is, or the challenge we are facing, is airspace closures. If a country closes their airport, for example, in some cases the airports have been hit. So the airport in Kuwait was hit. So if an airport's been attacked or the airspace is closed, then we can have the planes lined up to go, but we can't get them to land because we don't have the permissions to land there. So that's the challenge. But rest assured, we are confident that we are going to be able to assist every American. As I told you right now, we have about a little over 1,500, maybe closer to 1,600 Americans requesting assistance, and we know that we're going to be able to help them. It's going to take a little time because we don't control the airspace closures. That said, there may be more people out there that need help. We need to know who you are. So please, I'm asking the media, publicize the phone numbers and the website, because we need people to call in so we have their name, we have their contact information, we have their location and their request. So as he's...
Now, if the question is, hey, what was the plan to evacuate these people? And your response is, well, we're carrying out the plan, but we can't carry out the plan because of airspace closures. Literally, the most obvious consequence of opening hostilities with Iran would be that all surrounding countries would start closing their airspace due to the fact that missiles were going to start flying. So the answer to this is that there was never a plan, that there is no plan. None of this was thought about beforehand. Not evacuating American citizens, not responding to Iran escalation, not responding to Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, not anything here. And by the way, just speaking of closing down the Strait of Hormuz, also the Suez Canal is being shut down and traffic is being limited through the Suez Canal, which is, again, the artery for oil in our world. Okay? Ships are being redirected around around Africa. Like, it's causing a major shipping disruption. And to really emphasize how big that shipping disruption is, okay? Let me just throw this up here. Here's from Al Jazeera. Asian markets tank. Seoul sees largest drop on record. Shares in Asian markets have tanked amid rising worries that a widening war in the Middle East will drive an oil shock that increases inflation and delays interest rate cuts. Asia is heavily dependent on energy imports shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. The biggest losses were recorded in Seoul, where the session finished with the market plunging 12%, the largest drop on record. Yeah, so the world economy is not doing great. None of this was considered prior to this attack. They planned all of this in advance and did not consider any of the externalities, any of the ways it could escalate, any of the ways that this could potentially blow up. They thought it was going to be another well, let me put it this way. Donald Trump thought it could be another Venezuela for him, an easy win. Another feather to put in his cap. But Iran is not Venezuela. Okay? Iran is not Venezuela. Over 2 days, the benchmark has lost more than 18% of its value, while the currency has slumped to a 17-year low. Quote, Asia's sell-off is turning disorderly because markets are no longer treating this as a one-week headline shock. Charu Chanana, chief investment strategist at Saxo in Singapore, was quoted as saying by Reuters, the sell what you can phase is spreading. That is a way to translate that. There is a market panic right now in the Asian financial markets. Yeah, Japan has like a year of oil left. And like, they're gonna be especially vulnerable to any of the sticker shocks of oil prices as a result from all of this. Iran is not showing any sign of like slowing down with their attacks, because what it seems like they're trying to do is it seems that Iran at the moment is aware that they have a large arsenal of cheap explosives that they can fly to other places to explode. And they are using their massive stockpile of cheap bombs and missiles in order to exhaust air defenses. And once they've blown through the air defenses, a lot of both American and Israeli targets are going to be completely unprotected. I think that in a protracted conflict, Iran has an edge here. And that edge is going to get more and more obvious as the days go by. So this is going to be bad to say the least. Also, Israel appears to just be full-on attacking Lebanon now. Like, there's just like an expanding war going on here, and nothing good is coming of this. This is like the worst-case scenario for any kind of conflict with Iran that has been projected. Like, it's really bad, guys. It's really, really bad. I think a problem is that the United States and Israel don't have the same goals. Well, Israel and the United States don't have the same goals, but the United States in this conflict has no goals. There's no war goals for the United States government. Every single time Donald Trump speaks to a member of the press, he gives a different stated war goal. The problem is there is none, because there's no reason for us to engage with this, you know? In the 12-day war, this also happened, but when Israel and the U.S. interceptors ran dry, the conflict immediately ended. Once the interceptors run out of, hundreds of U.S. soldiers are pretty defenseless. I mean, that is one possible outcome here, But I also don't believe, let me put it this way. I don't believe that the Trump administration is going to stop. You know? I don't believe that they're going to stop until a lot of people die. Whether it's American soldiers or American civilians or Iranian civilians or Iranian soldiers, I don't think they give a damn. I don't think Donald Trump gives a damn. I think this entire thing was done to flatter his own goddamn ego. And if that means he needs to send American troops onto the ground in Iran to be slaughtered, he's going to do that in order to make his ego feel large. So, that is my worry here as things continue to escalate. Of course, there are additional questions about how the United States even got roped into this in the first place. Let's take a look at Marco Rubio again. Because again, Marco Rubio is one of the guys who went out there and said, well, you know, Israel was good. We learned that Israel was going to strike Iran, and our intelligence told us that Iran was going to then retaliate against us and Israel. And so we also attacked before Iran did anything with Israel. And let's see how he fares here. All right.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked a question.
No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that. You that follow up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program. That Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer.
Notice how the answer has changed. The president said we needed to destroy their ballistic missile capability. I thought it was about their nuclear program.
So this was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. And if you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
Yesterday.
You clipped me out of context. God, these guys are pathetic. Little crybabies. Israel/the United States seems like established air superiority over Iran, no matter how many leftover missile launchers Iran has hidden underground. Once they surface to fire, most likely they will get destroyed. Well, one, that is enormously dependent on whether or not there are enough munitions left for air operations to continue. That's number one. Number two, it is also incredibly dependent on do these platforms or bases that the Air Force is operating out of, do they have air defense capabilities anymore? Because the answer to that is rapidly becoming a no. And that is a big problem militarily. Here, let's take a look at Mark Wayne Mullen here.
You'll concede this is war. You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War. Secretary Hegseth.
We haven't declared.
Just now, you said this is war.
They've called it war.
They've called it war. What I was saying. Okay, well, that was a misspoke. What I was saying that they've declared war on us, but war is ugly. It always has been ugly. But we're.
Can we just play this again? Because he's trying to argue desperately that we're not at war, because if we are at war, then what that means is that this is all illegal and cannot be allowed under the US Constitution. So he's desperately trying to say we're not at war after saying we're at war.
You'll concede this is war. You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War. Secretary Hegseth.
We haven't.
The president called it war. Secretary of War Hegseth called it war. You just called it war.
Just now, you said this is war.
They've called it war.
They've called it war. What I was saying. Okay, well, that was a misspoke. What I was saying that they've declared war on us, but war is ugly.
I mean, also war is ugly, so it's a war. Like, you couldn't write this comedy sketch. It's incredible. Now, speaking of, are we at war? Are we calling it a war these days? Like, what's, yeah, he fucked up. Yeah, but you know what? It's understandable that he fucked up because there's so many conflicting messages. I want to play a clip for you that CNN put together. Let's just take a quick look. That was a misspoke.
And we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
I don't know if this is technically a war.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it.
This isn't a war. We haven't declared war.
The Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, said today this is a war.
We set the terms of this war, from start to finish.
Nobody should classify this as war. It is combat operations.
War is hell, and always will be.
Strategic strikes are not war.
And we may have casualties. That often happens in war.
Like, can we just, like, I want so much more of this energy from mainstream media. So much more of this catty, bitchy, petty energy needs to be directed towards the rich and the powerful. So much more of this needs to happen. Okay? Like, just, we need the juxtaposition of these people just blatantly lying to us. Just blatantly lying to us. Because I think it does a really good job of demonstrating how full of shit every single one of them is. All right? Also, let's just take a quick look here. Yeah. For the first time, a majority of Americans disapprove of Trump very strongly. This is according to a YouGov poll. Overall approval rate down to 38%. And, like, he ain't gonna get more popular as a result of this, folks. He's not gonna get more popular. Because I want y'all to understand, one of the big things, and you'll remember this if you guys watch this channel regularly, but one of the big things Republicans have been hanging their hat on for, like, the economic vitality of America is lower gas prices. Hey guys, what do you think happens to gas prices when the Strait of Hormuz closes and the Suez Canal starts closing down? It goes up. Already, gas prices in Europe have jumped 50%. Now, the United States is going to tap into, and this has already been announced, that we're going to tap into the Strategic Oil Reserve, which I want to point out is for national emergencies and, like, natural disasters. It's not supposed to be for the president took us unilaterally into a stupid, pointless war in the Middle East for no goddamn reason. And so we need to protect the American people from price shocks. But even tapping into the Strategic Oil Reserve is not going to save the United States from oil prices jumping up. It's just not. Okay? And as those prices go up, as the thing that Republicans have been hanging their hat on, the lower energy costs, it'll lower the shipping costs, it'll make everything cheaper. Like, as those gas prices go up, people are gonna fucking notice. Gas has been up 30 cents per gallon in the last 7 days here. Yep. And it is going to make people more and more angry. All right? Gotta tell you guys, he's not gonna get more approval from this. And I want to say that we are looking at something happening this week in Congress regarding some kind of constraint on Donald Trump's military actions in Iran. However, it is probably going to make all of us very angry. So, Axios published this earlier today. Centrist Dems push softer Iran war powers measure. So, to summarize what this is, essentially, a lot of Democrats, you know, establishment, conservative Dems, you know, the Chuck Schumer wing of the party, are all coming together and saying, well, we actually like that he's invading Iran. We think that's good. So we're gonna let him do this, but don't worry, American people. he can do what he wants for 30 days, and then he has to stop. That's the new thing that is being pushed for, and that might be the only thing that we get to constrain Donald Trump's powers. Punchbowl News is reporting that 6 House Democrats are supporting this alternate war powers resolution. And for the record, those 6 House Democrats were previously not going to support the Ro Khanna resolution that would have ended any of the military actions Donald Trump is taking in Iran. So what's happening here is some kind of negotiation, some kind of, back and forth is playing out. And whatever we get out of this is likely going to be less than ideal and likely going to constrain the president not very much. I hate this. I hate it too. The level of weakness that Congress is showing is exactly why people hate establishment Democrats. This is exactly why people hate the establishment Dems with a burning fucking passion. Like, we are ceding our constitutional powers so that this man can just have war games in Iran. We're enabling this at every turn, and the lack of any kind of accountability is killing us, and it's killing Iranians. I gotta be honest, like, with something like this, with Donald Trump so incredibly weak on this issue, with gas prices going up, with US soldiers being killed, the time is now for maximum leverage against Republicans who are trying desperately and unsuccessfully to try and sell this war to their base. The time is now for strong leverage. And establishment Dems are doing everything in their power to avoid using that leverage. Corporate Democrats need to be put on trial. I agree. Collaborators should also share the fate of those they collaborate with. And corporate Democrats are collaborating with the Epstein class and the Republicans that support the Epstein class. It's disgusting. Why is it AIPAC? I mean, a lot of it is AIPAC, yeah. And a lot of it is also because a lot of these old guys who've been in Congress forever have had a hate boner for Iran for like 30 or 40 years. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. And I want to point out that despite the fact that this is not good enough, I point this out because it is an indication that that leverage is so overwhelming that the steam behind Ro Khanna's war powers resolution is sufficiently strong enough that these centrist Dems are even coming forward with a compromise at all. Because I guarantee you, if Ro Khanna's resolution wasn't gaining steam in Congress, what would be happening right now would be that those centrist Dems wouldn't even be consolidating behind a symbolic war powers resolution or any kind of resolution that would limit this to 30 days. They would just sit back and enjoy it because they're monsters, right? But this is a sign that their position is weak and there is not a lot of support for it. And so I do want to say, continue to be angry. And I do encourage you all, use 5calls.org to call your elected officials in Congress to put additional pressure on them to end this stupid, pointless conflict with Iran. Maximize that point of leverage. Because right now, those centrist Dems would not be coming to the table if they didn't have to. So, all that being said, I want to point out 2 more things that are happening. Okay? Number 1, that as a result of this, Netanyahu is considering trying to call early elections in order to ride the support for attacking Iran to an easy electoral victory in Israel so that he can maintain his power. Because again, part of attacking Iran is so that he can continue to hold on to power so he doesn't go to jail. And also, just throwing this in at the very end, because Donald Trump continues to be in trouble here with the Epstein files, and I thought that this quote was pretty interesting. In Bill Clinton's deposition, he quoted Donald Trump as saying, "We had some great times together over the years, but we fell out all because of a real estate deal. I'm sorry it happened," while talking about Jeffrey Epstein. This is after Donald Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted pedophile. Oh, I'm so sorry that we had that falling out. What a shame. I'm sorry, if I found out someone I knew was a convicted pedophile, I would be talking openly about how great it was that I was no longer, like, in that person's life, that they were fucking out of my life forever. Pretty interesting, I would say. And that, combined with what's happening at Zorro Ranch, I feel like Donald Trump is very desperate here to cling on to power in his own way. So, we got two aging heads of state desperate to cling on to power. And, well, let's just hope that we can bring an end to this conflict as soon as humanly possible and start getting justice for the ways that both Netanyahu and Donald Trump have wronged and harmed both their respective countries as well as their targets, the targets of their imperialism. All that being said, folks, that is what is up at the moment. Things are continuing to spiral. It's going to get crazier and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, all that being said, folks, hit that like button if you got anything out of today's show. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment longer than 8 words, because apparently that helps in the algorithm. And also, folks, get organized, because we need to beat these bastards. Organize to make your DSA more effective. Organize to make your local Dems more progressive. Let's board the Democratic Party and take it over. Take it over from these corporate Democrats that are dragging their feet to end a pointless war on the other side of the planet that we started for no reason. Okay? If you don't know where to start, you can join our Discord, !Discord, in any of the chats, and reach out to Dragonfly. Dragonfly can help connect you with your local Dems and give you tips on how to make your Dems more progressive. She's been doing it for years. It is effective, but you need to show up in order to do it. And you can also reach out to Gamergy for help organizing your local DSA and making it more effective. We can, in fact, be the engines of change in our local areas and our state and our nation. Our world does not have to be like this. It does not have to be cruel. It does not have to be a place that feels like a hopeless quagmire. We can make it better. And we should. So all that being said, folks, get involved. And last but not least, please check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. And folks, we tested on cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is comfortable. It is sexy. It is a great vibe and a great look. I'm wearing it right now, actually. We've got new styles, new colors, and new sizes coming in the near future, so please check it out. Link down in the doobly-doo. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's